Welcome to the selfgrowth.com show. My name is David Riklan, and I'm the founder of selfgrowth.com. Today, we'll be discussing 8 tools of anger control for individuals and high conflict couples. To help us understand this topic, I'm excited to interview Dr. Tony Fiore. Make sure to listen closely. We're going to be sharing a lot of information today. Before we get started, I want to take a couple of minutes and share some information about Tony Fiore. Dr. Fiore is a licensed psychologist, marriage therapist, and anger management specialist with a local practice in Newport Beach, California. Since COVID-19, he's been delivering clinical and coaching services via telehealth. He's had extensive training and experience in both marriage therapy and anger management for individuals and couples. His most recent training has been with Terry Real in RLT, Relationship Life Therapy. He's also trained in the Gottman Method, PAC Therapy with Stan Tatkin, and Discernment Counseling with Dr. Bill Doherty at the University of Minnesota. With a partner, he has written a manual, Anger Management for the 21st Century, which is used in conjunction with an online certification program in anger management for other clinicians and therapists. He's been providing local court-accepted anger management classes since 2002 and provides virtual live classes weekly. And I'd like you to just jot down his website. He's going to be giving away a free ebook there, 8 Tools of Anger Control. So you want to jot this down. Make sure you get the free ebook. And the website's very simple. It's www.angercoach.com, www.angercoach.com, and you'll be able to get his free ebook, 8 Tools of Anger Control. Dr. Fiore, welcome to our show.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. Very excited. This is an important topic. The rate of anger these days and the emotions are off the charts everywhere. So I want to jump right in. First question, isn't anger just a normal emotion to have when someone pisses you off?
It certainly is. And I don't teach anger elimination. That would be ridiculous because, as you say, we're wired naturally to get angry when frustrated. So the program is anger management. It's how to deal with those feelings, not trying to eliminate the emotion of anger.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and some people acquire that ability of what we call emotional regulation quite early in life, and other ones, are 80 years old and still haven't figured it out. So it's a major survival skill in our world today, how to regulate all our negative emotions, including anger.
It makes a lot of sense because anger left unbridled or uncontrolled can lead to very destructive situations for sure.
Yeah, it can change your life, you know. Yeah. So I remember the time that I was doing an anger class and I had a young man in there that he was about 20 years old and he had a taped hand. I said, "Well, what happened to you?" He said, "Well, I got mad at my mom and I punched my hand through the wall." And I told him, "Well, you need to learn how to find out where the studs are before you keep up, that." But the point is that there was an old man there too. He walked in with a cane, 80 years old. And I said, "Well, what do you do when you get angry?" He said, "Well, I throw my cane," which got a laugh from everybody. But he looked at the young guy and said, "Had I learned anger control at your age, my whole life would be different."
Sure.
So, yeah.
It's very important. Well, one of the questions I want to put out there, a lot of times we get angry because we're in a relationship of some sort, or there's someone close in our lives, and we feel your partner's unreasonable. So if you feel your partner is unreasonable, why should we take, if my partner's being unreasonable, why should I take anger classes instead of them just changing their behavior?
Well, that's a very good question. And of course, that frequently triggers anger in us, is having to deal with somebody that we think is unreasonable or wrong or ridiculous or whatever. Well, the short answer is you can't control other people. You can only control yourself. and they're proud. You know, it'd be nice if they decide to change their ridiculousness, but they often don't see it that way. You know, I mean, reality is a point of view, and they often have quite a different interpretation. So the only logical thing to do is to try to change our response or our reaction to it. Another example would be somebody drives bad on the freeway. Well, should people drive badly on the freeway? Of course not. But how are you going to control that? I mean, you know, I mean, so the only thing to do is to try to develop a different response to bad
Right.
driving or bad behavior in a relationship.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yep. You know,
Yeah,
people are the minds.
now there's limits to that, of course. I mean, a partner can behave so badly that you know it's a deal breaker.
Right.
In which case you need to make other decisions.
Mhm.
But that still doesn't mean you have to get so angry over it.
Yeah, it's interesting. People think they can control others
Yeah.
and how others. It's hard enough figuring out how to control ourselves.
Yes.
You know, let's figure that out first before we go figure out how to control other people's
Right.
behavior.
And if you want to influence other people, I mean, if you want to try to do that, the place to start is to change yourself. And then maybe it'll pull different behavior from the other person, but it's their choice if they're going to change or not. So the answer is always to look at ourselves first. Look at how we're responding to what they're doing, and see if we change that response. If it doesn't change, influence them to want to do things differently.
That makes sense. So one of the things I mentioned early in the introduction was this concept of discernment counseling.
Yes.
So what exactly is discernment counseling, and how's it related to this whole anger control issue?
Yeah, well, it's a specialty developed by Dr. Bill Dougherty at the University of Minnesota, and what it means is helping couples decide what path they want to take regarding the future of their relationship. Lots of times, people, inexperienced marriage counselors, jump into helping a couple work on the marriage, when in fact they're not committed to wanting to save the marriage.
Right.
So, you know, often there's three people in the room. Two of them want the marriage to work, and one of those two is the therapist, not the other partner. So a lot of times anger is generated because people don't really want to be in the relationship and they don't know how to get out of it. So, so discernment helps them decide what path they're going to take. One of the paths, interestingly, that the Bill developed is a path where couples decide to keep things as they are by just not getting a divorce, but having some kind of a controlled separation, which immediately takes the anger away because you're not trying to make it work anymore.
Right.
And the idea is just to get along with each other. Sometimes you live together, most of the time you separate, but
right.
The anger goes away often once you make the decision, because there's nothing to fight about. You don't feel so trapped.
Right.
So,
well, there's a frustration about trying to do something that you can't accomplish.
That's exactly right. Yeah, very true.
Yeah. And frustration leads to anger and the other issues. So the core, when I mentioned it in the introduction, as I said, we're going to focus on the 8 tools of anger control. And I just want to remind people that you have a free ebook to get, and it's at angercoach.com. So everybody, make sure you jot that down, angercoach.com, 8 tools of anger control. But what I'd like to do is spend some time with you right now and go through the 8 tools. So can we spend some time going through that, and let's give a kind of big picture?
Yeah, these are basic skills to manage anger. And, a lot of times managing anger isn't a matter of just understanding where it comes from. It's a matter of developing the specific skill in order to regulate your emotions. So The first skill is learning to manage stress. Many times, stress is and anger are highly related. So, if you've got eight stressors in your life, and I mean you're having trouble at work, and you have financial problems, and your life's a mess, of course you're going to blow up at almost anything
Right.
that comes up. So managing stress is, one of the one of the main anger management tools, and you can manage stress lots of ways. Exercise is very good. Meditation, deep. Sometimes just teaching people how to breathe, does amazing
Correct.
things. And so that's the first tool, handling stress. Okay, the second tool is learning to develop empathy. Empathy is the ability to see things from the other guy's point of view, and it's easy to say and amazingly hard to do, because as we see things, we assume other people see things the same way,
Right.
or if they don't, they should. So learning now. A lot of people confuse seeing things, or the skill of seeing things like your partner does, as agreeing with them. And those two things are very different. Empathy is the ability to see it as they see it. You don't have to agree with it.
That
So,
makes sense.
yeah. So in anger management, I teach people, how to do that. It's amazing how some people are super empathetic. In fact, some people are too empathetic. We call people like that empaths.
Right.
But other people have like zero empathy, and it never occurred to them to, see it from another guy's point of view. So that's a major skill that we teach. Tool number 3 is respond instead of react. In modern language, it's like trying to rewire your brain so that the part of your brain that creates anger isn't triggered so easily. It's called the amygdala. And we try to teach people how to respond in a way differently than they have all their life to the anger trigger. Stop being like a snake who reacts to a poke with a stick, and decide how you're going to just step back and decide how you're going to deal with the situation.
Just to jump in, so respond instead of react. I almost think of responding as thoughtful reaction.
Well, that's one of the ways. Yeah, that's right. You just, right. That's exactly right. It's to decide, make a decision how you're going to deal with the situation instead of it being automatic, because a lot of things that trigger anger occurs in a part of our brain that bypasses the frontal lobes. So often we don't realize why we're getting angry. It's just like, automatic. So before that gets out of control, we need to learn how to respond to that trigger differently so it doesn't happen. And then eventually your brain learns how to better deal with the trigger instead of blowing up.
All right, so let's go through. So what's number 4? Let's jump in.
Yeah, number 4 is learning to change your self-talk. It's like rethinking the situation, as you just said. It's almost impossible. Well, the way to view it is that anger doesn't live in the trigger as much as what's going on in your head about the trigger. Okay, so learning new self-talk means to change your attitude toward what's going on, or reinterpret what's going on so it doesn't generate anger in your brain. So there's lots of ways to look at things, and Tool 4 teaches people how to do that.
All right, so let me just quick synopsis. The first 4: manage stress. The first one, using different techniques. You mentioned exercise, meditation, breathing, developing empathy, which makes a lot of sense. Respond instead of react, and then self-talk, the changing your self-talk.
Right.
Those are all critical. Just an interesting thing about self-talk. For me, self-talk is that ongoing dialogue we have in our head.
Right. Yeah. That conversation, right?
Yeah, and that dialogue could take us anywhere, and it's
And we create a story about what's going on, right, in
yeah,
our head. Yeah.
yep, absolutely. All right, so we got the first four. Let's keep going. Number 5.
Number 5 is develop assertive communication. Amazingly, often angry people don't get angry enough or earlier in the process, so they let it stew and build, and then they explode because they don't stand up for themselves earlier in the process. So we teach assertiveness, and if you're upset about something, deal with it then. Don't no, store it and stuff it for 3 years, and then your partner has no idea what's going on. So learn to communicate assertively, and we teach specific assertive skills instead of dysfunctional communication like passive aggression or other ways that people communicate, instead of just being direct with their needs, and expressing your needs, express what bothers you. And a lot of times people get mad at their partners where but the partner's doing things that irritate them, but the partner doesn't realize that.
Right.
Yeah, so just explaining what you want calmly often is a much better tactic than just getting automatically mad at your partner. So let them know what you need, and how they can stay out of harm's way.
It makes a lot of sense. The interesting thing about that, and maybe you could talk about it for a minute, is that I think in a lot of people's heads, talking about what's bothering them right now, it's a confrontation.
Yes.
So they're going to be confronting. In their mind, they're going to be confronting somebody. So it's something somebody does, they're confronting them. And in a lot of cases, people don't like confrontation. So they put those off till it stews into something really, really big that's unmanageable.
Right.
So do you have any suggestions for how people can kind of get over that almost a fear? It's a fear of confrontation. And then, as you mentioned earlier, people don't want to confront, they're not assertive, and then they start using passive aggressive means and things like that.
Right.
So any quick tips, and I think you go into this more in the free ebook, but any quick tips on how to deal with that fear of confrontation?
Yes, don't start out by saying you should or telling them what they're doing wrong. Start with explaining your reaction to what they're doing. That's a much better approach. It's not that you shouldn't wash the dishes that way. It's that when you do, this is how I feel, or whatever the issue is. That's a much softer way.
Sure.
It's much more effective, and than blaming people for how they are. You can keep on lying to me, but I'm telling you, every time you do, it makes me feel more distant from you, and eventually it's going to be a deal breaker for me. Right. So let them know how you feel. Let them,
Okay, that sounds good, and it's your personal feelings. It's not a wrong or right. This is how you feel.
Right. That's right. Then they have the option, the choice of changing their behavior or not.
Right.
So.
All right, let's keep going. Number 6.
Yeah, number 6 is change your expectations, and this is major. A lot of psychologists say that when you get married, you don't marry a person, you marry a concept. You marry who you want the person to be, or who you think the person is, and sometimes that doesn't turn out to be the reality of it. So we get all frustrated. So. This tool teaches people to change what they expect, and I think I saw the Gottman material behind you on your bookshelf there, but the Gottmans, who are the premier marital researchers in the country, have found that 69% of issues between couples probably are never going to change. I don't know, and so, but people expect changes. Right. And I'm not talking about small things. I'm talking about character traits and
right.
So the goal to not being angry is to learn to be with each other around those differences rather than trying to change the other person.
Right.
Nothing generates anger like trying to change people who don't want to change. So
Yeah, that's increase the anger level. In my mind, there's a formula that I use. It's my happiness formula that I believe. So that the happiness is the difference between what real life is and what your expectations of life are.
that's right.
So
That gap is that right?
yeah, so if your expectations are life will be here and you're down here,
Yes,
you're going to be unhappy. If your
exactly.
expectations are down here and your life's over here, you'll be happy. So
That's that metaphor I teach my people. That's a good way to look at it. Right.
expectations are critical. They're very, very important, and people underestimate the importance of setting expectations.
Yeah, and they want their partners to be who they want them to be instead of who they are. And that
Sure.
creates a lot of problems, as you say.
All right. Number 7. Let's keep going.
Yeah, number 7 is learning to forgive and letting go of past hurts, and not holding grudges. And a lot of people have a real struggle with that. They hold on to it for years. The classic case I had was a woman that came in for marriage therapy after been married 30 years. She walks into my office, 30 years. I said, "What's the problem?" She said, "The son of a gun didn't buy me the wedding ring I wanted on our wedding day 30 years ago." Now, the husband was otherwise a great husband, no drinking, no cheating, but it was the wedding ring, 30 years ago. And the poor guy said, "Well, I was broke, honey. I was a poor teacher. And 10 years later, I did buy you a nice ring." And guess what she said? "It doesn't matter. It wasn't on our wedding day, So
Too late.
she held on to that for all those years.
Ah, that's crazy.
Well, obviously there were other problems too.
Yeah. All right. So learning to forgive.
But and there's a whole protocol for how to forgive, and and what it means and what it doesn't mean, and and if you decide not to forgive, then maybe you should move on, but you don't have to be angry all that time.
Right.
That's the idea.
All right. Okay. Number 8.
And number 8, the last tool, and in many ways one of the most important tools, it's retreat and think things over. Disengage yourself at the moment from what's going on until you cool down and you can deal with the situation. There's a part of our brain called the amygdala that takes over when we're pissed off, and we're not ourselves, and we say things, and it shuts down the rest of the brain when the amygdala kicks in. So this is the technique of having a protocol where when you start getting heated up, you say a certain thing and you disengage from each other for a period of up to 20 minutes until you can come in. And then I teach self-talk that you use during that separation time. So when you come back, the argument doesn't get restarted. A lot of times that cool off period makes a huge difference. Most people, when they have a fight and you ask them a week later, what was the fight about? They don't remember.
Right.
So if you can get past that initial whoosh or that initial flooding of emotions, often that solves the problem in itself, so that you can be in your right mind. And if you have to deal with the problem, you should be in your right mind and not your triggered mind, which is pretty irrational. So, yeah. And by the way, I always point out to my people that I'm not an advocate of never getting angry. I mean, or never expressing anger. It's okay sometimes to say, "I'm really pissed at you," or "This really bothers me," or let's stop. I mean, but for it to be controlled and not just raging anger. So sometimes getting angry is the appropriate response to the situation.
Sure. No, it makes sense. There's definitely situations that not only require but demand anger. There's certain times people do things that are just completely unacceptable.
Yeah, and sometimes people don't listen to you unless you get mad.
Right. Yep.
And then you have their attention. So.
All right. So just to remind everybody, make sure you check it out. You can get the ebook angercoach.com. So I want to cover a few other things with you. I believe you have a home study course for
Yeah.
anger management. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is a course that teaches the 8 tools of anger control. It uses video, it uses print, it uses worksheets and so forth. And there's 2 versions of it. One is 10 hours, the other is 16 hours, and I just reduced the price, and it's like what, $50 and $70, I think. And yeah, and you can download it and sit at 2 o'clock in your morning in your underwear and learn anger management. So that's been a popular program through the years.
So for anybody right now, if you're having an issue dealing with anger relative to what's going on in your life, relationships, it's a great approach to do it in private. You just stick on your headphones and you have access to it. And I know, Dr. Fiore, you also do one-on-one, but we'll talk about some of the other stuff. There's a couple of other things I want to ask you about. So husband-wife strategy. So let me ask you a couple of very pointed questions. So what's the best strategy for a husband to use to disarm? They have a very angry spouse.
Yeah.
What's the best strategy? What do you recommend?
Well, Terry Rios says to disarm an angry woman, give her what she needs. Not necessarily what she wants. And I'm not talking about material things here, but responding to the emotional needs of your wife, or your relationship. What if you have to list one thing that creates anger in many relationships more than anything else, is women feeling that they're not being listened to and their emotional needs aren't being met. So it sounds simplistic, but it's true. I mean, if you want to disarm your angry wife, be empathetic, find out what's going on with her emotionally, and give her that attention, time, be sensitive and not dismissive to what she's saying. That's sort of a one-word answer about it.
Right, yeah. Let's go to the flip side. So wife's angry because she's not getting the communications they need. Husband's not listening. They're distant. How could the wife get the communication they need and deserve from their husbands?
Most men, when you ask them, I've asked this question I've been doing anger management classes for like almost 20 years. And I always ask men, what do you need so that you'll be happier in the relationship? And almost universally, if guys are 40 or 50, they say what they want more than anything else is peace. They want to be, they want to be left alone sometimes. To like after work to have time to de-stress, or have some men feel that they're always pressured to have to respond or deal with an issue, when they just want some more time to sort things out. So, give your man some time to kind of collect himself and deal with stuff, because the average man doesn't think about relationship as much as the average woman.
Right.
So relationship isn't on their brain most of the time, like it is for many women. Now you have to be careful. I don't want to over stereotype here, but
right.
But that's a sort of a general tendency I've noticed.
Well, definitely applies for me historically. So I don't know if I fit into the prototype or archetype of the guy, but yeah, thinking and talking about relationships and feelings for many men isn't the top priority.
That's right, and that's very frustrating to women. But once again, it's a matter of resetting expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Once again, another way to reduce anger is if a woman isn't getting what she needs from her man in that regard, instead of, being frustrated for 20 years, get the needs satisfied somewhere else. I mean, there's obviously limits to that too, but get a girlfriend, or, if you need more intimacy, you need more talking, you need more sharing, and, there's many ways to get your needs satisfied. It doesn't have to be 100% in the marriage.
I know you also offer, you have the one training program you mentioned, You also offer online virtual anger management classes. I believe you do one-on-one stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more about the other things you do and how to get access, how to reach you and how to find that information?
Yeah, anybody can reach me by sending an email to Dr. Tony Fiore at gmail.com, DrTonyFiore at Gmail, or Dr. Tony at angercoach.com. Either one will work. And I do well, since COVID, I do virtual anger management classes on Zoom on Tuesday night. And the cost is only $35 a class. And we meet at 7:30. And we go over the anger book and teach the 8 tools of anger control. And then they get a certificate at the end, which is, which if they're court ordered, some people are court ordered, about 50% are court ordered. So the program will accommodate that. Okay, and then other things I do is the discernment counseling, which we talked about. That's a 5-session program, a very structured program to help people decide which path they want regarding the future of their relationship, either to keep things as they are. Path 1, path 2 is to pursue a divorce, or path 3 is to commit to 6 months of marriage therapy with divorce off the table. Yeah. So, and the third thing I do is marriage counseling, marriage therapy. Once again, that's online, and I'm trained, as we said before, in many approaches to marriage counseling, depending on what the couple needs.
Okay, so a good place to start is just angercoach.com to go there and
yes, all this information's on that web. Oh, by the way, and I've got a blog. There's a bunch of free stuff that they can get there and download a lot of information on what we've been talking about.
All right, before we wrap up, do you have any final words for our audience? You've shared a lot of information, a lot of valuable, very practical, what I see is very practical information for folks. Any final words for our audience before we finish up?
Well, I remember the famous words of Aristotle that one of the tricks to living in modern society is to recognize that we get angry, but to do it in the right way, with the right person, and with the right motivation in mind. So it's okay to get angry, but learn how to do it the right way in modern society so that it's effective.
That makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
So Dr. Fiore, thank you very much for joining us today. A lot of good stuff.
Thank you, David. Appreciate being on.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening. And I wish everybody great success in all areas of your life. We'll talk to everybody soon.
Okay. Go forth and be unangry.
Thank you. Good stuff.
Bye-bye.